The extraordinary lives of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Next on Biography.
Hello, I'm Peter Graves. Welcome to Biography. It has been said that at any moment of the day, somewhere on the planet, an episode of I Love Lucy is being shown. Without a doubt, it's the most popular show in television history. But as well as we know the adventures of Lucy and Ricky Ricardo, the lives of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz are another story. But like Lucy and Ricky, the saga of Lucy and Desi, even with its ups and downs, was above all a love story.
I love Lucy. Everybody loves Lucy.
She would know about the lighting, she would know about the scenery, the costumes, the music, everything.
Lucy was the biggest star, the biggest female star ever in television, and I don't think there'll ever be one like it again.
Desi Arnaz was a brilliant man who surprised me because he had never been given the credit or recognition as to being more than a one-dimensional actor and performer. And I found that he was brilliant in business, charming, and could handle people.
I think that Desi, was just the love of her life.
I think if it wouldn't have been for Lucy, I would have stopped trying a long time ago because I was always the guy that didn't fit.
This guy gets my vote as the greatest producer of all time. And I have two little Arnazes at home to prove it. Desi, I love you, signed Lucy.
They were from two different worlds far apart. Their love affair was sensational, their breakup spectacular. But for television audiences all over the world, Lucy and Desi remain to this day the first couple of American television. Lucille Desiree Ball was born August 6, 1911, in a tiny suburb outside Jamestown in upstate New York. She was a beautiful girl whose Scottish and Irish heritage combined to give her a fair complexion and crystal blue eyes and mousy brown hair. Over the years, there would be changes in her hair color from brunette to blonde before she settled on her trademark red. Lucille's father, Henry Ball, was a tall, handsome man who worked as a telephone lineman. He had grown up in Jamestown, where he met 18-year-old Desiree Dee Dee Hunt, a talented young pianist. They quickly fell in love and were married in 1910, and Lucille was born just a year later. 3 years later, Dee Dee was pregnant again. But this time, tragedy struck when Henry fell victim to typhoid fever. Because her father had become sick when she was so young, Lucille would never have the normal family life, or the memories that most girls have. Indeed, her first recollections would be of a house that suddenly had to be quarantined when her father fell ill. Henry Ball died before Lucille's 4th birthday.
But I endured, and it wasn't that bad, and it taught me a lot of good things and a lot of appreciation for later on.
3 years after her father's death, Lucille's mother remarried. But her new husband, a slightly older man named Ed Peterson, didn't like children. So Lucy and her younger brother Fred were sent to live with relatives. Chores were the order of the day.
We didn't play. We worked. And Lucy and I and Cleo, we took care of the house, including animals and chickens and pigs and so forth.
Even when she was small, she would run away, not far, but she knew that there was a drive that she had to go somewhere. And it got to the point where they had to tie her to a post in the backyard because you couldn't trust her alone.
One thing Lucille really liked about those early years was the time she spent with her rather eccentric grandfather, Ed Hunt. Grandpa Hunt, who was, among other things, an outspoken socialist, became one of the key influences in young Lucille's life. He introduced her to the world of show business by taking her to see the traveling vaudeville shows and then by encouraging Lucy to perform in neighborhood skits. It was a long way from Hollywood, but it was an important first step on Lucy's road to stardom.
Didn't have any great drama society or anything, but anything they had, I was a part of it. Sunday school, church, the Kiwanis, anything. Any place where I could get up and perform, I was there.
More than 1,000 miles away in Santiago, Cuba, Desiderio Alberto Arnaz was born on March 2nd, 1917. Lucy was already 6. Desi was the first son of a prominent family in Santiago. His great-grandfather, Don Manuel, had been appointed mayor of Santiago in 1869 by Queen Isabella of Spain. His grandfather was the doctor assigned to Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders when they went up San Juan Hill. And Desi's father, Don Desiderio, who started his career as a pharmacist, became the youngest mayor in Cuba at the age of 29.
My father was the mayor of my hometown. My uncle was the chief of police. We had that town pretty well run.
Desi's wealth and privilege in his childhood and teen years led him to say once the world was his oyster, but with all that privilege, he had no direction. He wasn't required to have any. So while he had drive and determination, he didn't quite know what to do with it. So he floundered for many years, and it seemed that the only direction he really had was to find the course of pretty girls.
Though many in Cuba suffered crushing poverty, the Arnaz family had money and position. But all that came to an abrupt end when Desi was 16. August 12, 1933, the year after his father had been elected to the Cuban Congress, the Machado government was overthrown in a violent revolution. Desi's family lost everything they owned, and most fled to Miami. But as a government official, Desi's father had been thrown into jail, and he was only allowed to leave the country after spending 6 months in La Cabana prison.
Desi and his mother had fled to Miami, and they had to give up all their possessions. They had been a very wealthy family, but of course, they had nothing left.
At the same time Desi was landing in Florida, young Lucille was trying to be the center of attention. She seemed stage-struck from the very start, getting involved in all her school plays, and not just acting, but making costumes and props and even selling tickets, showing an ambition and determination that would define her later career. Lucy would do whatever it took to stay close to the bright lights.
When Lucy was in her teens, she appeared in a school play, and she really got the acting bug after that, and she was determined to get to New York.
Tiny Jamestown wasn't a big enough stage for Lucy, who had blossomed into a willowy young woman with sky-blue eyes, a quick, dazzling smile, and a wild reputation. In 1926, at age 15, she quit high school, convincing her family to send her to New York City to attend an acting school. She was far from an overnight success. In fact, Lucy lasted just 6 weeks at the John Murray Anderson School of Drama. Lucille's talents were eclipsed by another young actress named Bette Davis.
Lucille planned to take New York by storm, and she had great confidence and drive and determination that she was going to be an actress to be reckoned with. However, she did not reckon with Bette Davis, who was the star pupil at the dramatic school. And Bette was so outspoken and so seeking of attention that Lucille sort of recoiled and shook her self-confidence in her belief that she could be an actress.
Wrote my mother a letter and said we were wasting our money. He was very right at the time. I couldn't walk across the room in front of anyone. They were pretty blunt about how untalented I was.
6 weeks after she arrived in New York, Lucy, who had planned to take New York by storm, was homesick and intimidated for the first time in her life and took a bus ride back to Jamestown. Things hadn't worked out at all the way she'd expected. Her ego was badly bruised, and she had no idea what she'd do next.
This was her favorite thing. But right where we are right now is what I heard her talk about all the time, the lake. Going down to the lake. Chautauqua Lake was her favorite thing in the world. And she and Marion would, you know, get down and go down to the park and go to every single movie that was in town and see all the vaudeville shows that came in.
In 1927, as a 16-year-old, she finally landed a job in the chorus line in the 3rd Road Company of Rio Rita. But it turned out Lucy wasn't a particularly good dancer, and she was fired after only 5 weeks and never made it to the Broadway stage. Winning jobs only to lose them would happen over and over in those early years.
I was hired as a showgirl about 5 times. One time I lasted 2 days, one time I lasted 5 days, and one time I lasted 5 weeks.
Meanwhile, back in Miami, 16-year-old Desi, who spoke little English, found himself trying to adjust. While continuing school, he went to work for his father, first importing ceramic tile and then bananas. The family's bad luck continued. The uninsured tiles arrived at their warehouse broken, the bananas rotten. But the always enterprising Arnaz family started turning their misfortune around. Desi and his father convinced a builder that broken tile was actually a good thing, a decorating highlight when properly arranged. Soon the refugee family was back on its feet. But Desi had some influences that weren't necessarily the best. One of his closest friends and teammates on the St. Patrick's High basketball team was the son of legendary mobster Al Capone.
All that Desi knew about Al Sr. was that he was a strict father and looked very closely over his son. Years later, the association would take a turn when Desi produced The Untouchables, the crime drama series, and he heard from Al Jr. that he didn't particularly like the way that his father and Italian Americans were depicted in the program.
In the Arnaz family, everyone worked, contributing to the family's comeback. Desi's jobs in those tough early days in Miami ran from peddling fruit to, at one point, literally cleaning bird cages. Much of what little money Desi kept for himself was spent courting a series of teenage girls. But $5 of his earnings went to buy a guitar from a neighborhood pawn shop. It was a purchase that changed his life. Desi's father was dead set against it, but a local rumba band needed some help. The pay was $39 a week, a lot more than cleaning bird cages, and it was a much better way to meet girls.
Desi was fun. He was wonderful. Now, it was always my impression that I think Desi, the happiest Desi I think ever was playing the bongo and doing music, and that was Desi.
Lucy wasn't having fun during those years, but despite rejection after rejection trying to get acting jobs, she didn't give up. Indeed, she displayed something that would show up throughout her career. Lucy would do whatever it took to get the role and work harder than anyone else once she had it, without complaint. She'd already changed her hair color from brunette to blonde in an effort to find something, anything, that would break her out of the pack of would-be stars. This time, she changed her name. Lucille Ball decided to seek work as a model and call herself Diane Belmont.
She tried to emulate Carole Lombard. I think that was about the period, for about 30 minutes, Lucy changed her name, too, to Diane Belmont. And once I was in New York, and it was a premiere, and she got out of the car, and I was already there, and I rushed up and said, "You're Diane Belmont." And she went, whoa, did one of those huge laughs again.
Hats, dresses, coats, Lucy modeled them all in top stores like Bergdorf Goodman, taking home just $25 a week. And like many struggling models and actresses of the time, she even worked part-time as a waitress, very unsuccessfully.
I was a soda jerk for a week and a half. I was trying my best, but I just could never remember to put the banana in the banana split dish. I got fired because of that.
Lucy was flat broke, struggling from meal to meal. Studio publicity pictures of the time were already risque. Lucy, like many actresses back then, went even further. Just to put food on the table, she posed for some pictures that weren't the kind you'd actually send home to Mom. But it wasn't the lurid photos that caused her trouble. Her budding career almost ended before it got started. Lucille was stricken with rheumatoid arthritis.
Violent pains. And I fell to the floor, and they dragged me out. They didn't know what was wrong with me.
Doctors had said she'd never walk again. They were wrong. It took her 2 years, but Lucille was back on her feet and determined as ever to become a star. She returned to Manhattan to try again.
It was a very hot July Wednesday, and this lady whom I had met said, "What are you doing in town?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing in town? I work." And she said, "Nobody stays in New York in a hot July." And she said, "How would you like to go to California?" And I was hired on the spot, and that's the first time I'd really been a part of showbiz.
Biography will continue in a moment.
Soft leather, fine wood, acoustic perfection, front row seats, The experience of beautiful music has always been enhanced by a rich atmosphere. Acura. Some things are worth the price.
Life's best rewards, like trust and friendship, fall into your lap because you're the friend you'd love to have. And now, for all you give, new Time Bank from Sprint gives you free time on every bill. 1 free minute for every 5 you spend on the phone. Because the best rewards are the ones you never have to ask for. Imagine that, being rewarded for something that comes naturally.
Is getting into your briefcase more of a job than your job? Old-fashioned briefcases have 2 positions, open and closed. Introducing the first briefcases to split the difference. Samsonite's new Smart Attachés. They open all the way when laid flat, but a patented Smart Hinge tells them to open like a portfolio when upright. So you can get to your work without all the work. The Smart Attaché series, new from Samsonite.
Passion governs, and she never governs wisely.
The colonies are not to be emancipated.
All men are created equal. Victory or death.
Mini-series born on the battlefield of the first American dream. A world premiere event, the American Revolution, beginning Sunday, only on A&E. It was war between the states, romanticized, idealized, the ultimate turning point in our nation's history, a war of heroes and heroics for an undying, unwavering cause, where farm fields became killing fields, where men fought and died for their beliefs. The Union and the Confederacy, the blue and the gray, the war that shaped the face of America. Civil War Journal, Sunday on A&E.
A&E's biography continues. As the 1930s began, a struggling young actress named Lucille Ball and a determined musician named Desi Arnaz had not yet met. They were on different coasts, but both were cutting a path to the top. Lucy, using the stage name Diane Belmont, had made her first big splash as the sexy Chesterfield girl in advertising posters of the early 30s. But in July 1933, a casting agent named Sylvia Hollow saw her and put her on the next train to Hollywood with a chance to become one of Sam Goldwyn's Goldwyn girls.
She was so gorgeous. Oh, she was one of the most spectacular-looking women. She was not the leading lady type, I don't think. And I met her there, and she was gregarious, always. Everybody loved Lucy. She was the party girl.
Lucille had many romances in Hollywood in her early days, including Pandora Berman, who was the head of RKO, and Alexander Hall, who was a director, and Broderick Crawford, who was a tough guy in pictures at the time. And she even dated Henry Fonda, who Henry later said that Lucille really didn't give him the time of day, but said if only they had gotten together, because then the great empire would have been called Henry Lou.
When she took her first job in Hollywood, she also took back her old name. Diane Belmont disappeared, Lucille Ball returned. As a Goldwyn girl, Lucille worked steadily, though she wasn't getting the parts she wanted or any kind of big break. In her early 20s, the young actress was ambitious and felt slighted as a bit player in Goldwyn's operation. Lucy asked for and got a release from her contract, signing instead with Columbia Pictures for a salary of $125 a week. It turned out to be a mistake. Lucille had a series of walk-on roles appearing with acts like the Three Stooges, but Columbia dropped her.
She loved the work. She used to tell me about when she was first under contract, she'd be an Indian one day and a colonial lady one day. She would be an Eskimo one day, and she didn't mind that. She just loved it.
Lucy was out of work, and she, oddly enough, it was only for a few hours because she found out that RKO was signing people up right down the street. So the same day she went down there and became an RKO contract player.
I was very happy with everything that went on at RKO. Everything that they gave me, I did happily.
For RKO, starting in 1935, Lucille appeared in a string of low-budget movies, some without even so much as a credit. She worked so hard and in so many films that she became known as the Queen of the B's, or B-movies.
Mr. Miller, your entire cast is in the lobby. They've been locked out of their rooms.
And though she wasn't the glamorous leading lady, she didn't seem to mind.
My career was built on everything that Ann Southern didn't have time to do. Absolutely true, and I was very grateful for it. I'd sort of hang around the casting office and say, Mr. Piazza, is there anything that Ann Southern can't do this month, you know? And he finally got the idea, and he admired me for it. And he'd say, yeah, go to see director so-and-so.
She used to tell a story. She was a Golden Girl, and they'd say, who wants to get pushed in the mud? She said, I'll do it.
Or get a pie in the face.
Yeah, she was always ready to do those things, but they didn't use her that way. She was always best friend of a star.
In a town full of leading ladies, Lucille Ball became known as an actress who would play any part. Finally, at age 26, Lucy got her break in a film called Stage Door,
which was a big production, big stars, Ginger Rogers, Katharine Hepburn, Eve Arden. And it put her on the map. And after Stage Door, she began to be top billed in B movies.
Lucille's good reviews in Stage Door led to starring roles in movies like The Affairs of Annabelle in '38 and Five Came Back in 1939. The pictures might have been forgettable, but Lucille's performances were solid and entertaining. Still, she struggled to find a niche. Lucille was pretty, but not the Hollywood leading lady type.
Lucy had beautiful coloring, but she had some goofy little girl something in her face when she performed that made you say clown.
If Lucille seemed stuck climbing up the show business ladder, Desi Arnaz shot to the top with no effort at all. In fact, his toughest trick may have been convincing his father, who never wanted his son to be in the music business, that it was okay to play in a band. As it turned out, Desi was quite talented, both with guitar and as a singer, with good looks, charm, and a sense of showmanship that marked him as a natural.
Desi formed a group called the Siboney Septet, and he was performing around Miami, and he came to the attention of Xavier Cugat. And Cugat liked Desi, and they worked out a deal where Cugat, who had his own orchestra, spun off another orchestra, and he called it Desi Arnaz and Xavier Cugat's Orchestra. And Desi worked that branch in Florida while Cugat worked his in New York.
I said, Cugat, I gotta get my little band. And he says, you'll die of hunger. Nobody knows the rumba in this country. I says, I'm dying of hunger now. So what's the difference?
Desi introduced the conga line, which was based on a Cuban folk dance in Miami. It became very popular in Miami, and they opened a club in New York called La Conga, and they brought the whole craze up there.
Desi's flashy conga numbers stopped shows. He became the toast of New York's cafe society, and then one night, Broadway's legendary team of Richard Rodgers and Lawrence Hart came to hear him. Though Desi had never acted on stage in his life, they cast him in their new Broadway musical, Too Many Girls, ironically in the part of an 18-year-old virgin named Manolito. Desi and the show were both smash hits. RKO bought the movie rights to the show, signing Desi to sing in the picture. Call it fate, but the young actress who'd won the part of the ingenue in the movie was Lucille Ball.
Desi had done the stage version of the show, and Hollywood sent him out to reprise his role in the movies. On all accounts, especially Desi's, when he met his co-star, it was love at first sight.
Well, really second sight. Just before Too Many Girls began shooting, Lucy was finishing Dance Girl Dance, a film about two burlesque queens. After shooting a scene with Maureen O'Hara, the two went for lunch to the commissary. Lucy was still wearing her stripper's costume, and as Desi first gazed at Lucille, he decided he wanted no part of the hard-boiled floozy with hair in her eyes, at least not in his movie. But when he saw her the next day, she had changed her clothes.
And she came in with a very lovely pair of yellow slacks and a tan sweater and blonde hair. And she was a blonde then. And those big, beautiful blue eyes. And I said to the piano player, I said, oh man, that's a hunk of woman.
Desi didn't even know that it was the girl who had been the hard-boiled dame, because Lucille was dressed as she would be in the picture. And Desi was having lunch with George Abbott, the producer on Broadway of Too Many Girls, and Lucille came to the table, and he turned on the Latin charm, asking her if she wanted to learn the conga, and Lucille responded in a positive way, but not until she left the table did George Abbott indicate to Desi that that was the same girl that he had seen yesterday, and he had no idea, and that's actually when the romance really began.
At the time, Desi Arnaz was in a hot relationship with a married woman, and Lucille was actually engaged to and living with a director named Al Hall. Now, Lucy and Desi's friends didn't think their romance could last. Lucy knew they were mismatched, and she joked that Too Many Girls was the story of Desi's life. But without so much as a word of warning, Desi and Lucy dumped their respective partners and started spending every available minute with each other.
I said, are you doing anything tonight? Because if you don't have anything to do tonight, how would you like to learn how to do the rumba?
Of course, they would do much more than that. They would go on to become one of the most popular couples in history. Biography will continue in a moment.
Listen, this stuff that we make, it's powerful. It makes you powerful. Stuff that we make, it's powerful. Take it, listen, gather up your ideas, run with them. It makes you powerful. Just do something amazing. We're in your corner, and we can't wait to see what you're going to do. Stuff that we make, listen.
Shaping that's natural, not a look that's flattering, not. Today's Cross Your Heart underwires with the crisscross shaping that's as fashionable as it is flattering. Cross Your Heart underwires from Playtex.
Those soldiers never die. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
All of history, all in one place. The History Channel. It's coming in the future.
Paying for quality can be a difficult decision at first. But over time, it gets a lot easier to live with. Acura. Some things are worth the price.
Be it endless fascination with the Bible, or chilling tales of Gothic horror, the possible existence of Bigfoot, or the grip of a mummy's curse, these are the stories that myths and legends are made of. Uncover the truth behind ancient mysteries. Friday on A&E. It's time well spent.
A&E's monthly magazine opens your eyes to the best in original biographies, mysteries, and specials. From complete highlights, in-depth reviews, and an array of collectibles, to fascinating articles, up-close interviews, even the challenge of a crossword. A&E Monthly is your connection to what's happening today. To order your 12 issues of the A&E Monthly for only $18 a year, 23 Canadian dollars, call 1-800-238-2800.
Meet the man behind Frankenstein. Kenneth Branagh is profiled in this month's issue. Also, a candid interview with Annette Funicello, a visit to beautiful St. Bart's, complete program listings, and more. Call now and receive a free CD of Mozart's greatest symphonies with your paid subscription.
Call 1-800-238-2800 for an engaging look at television's best.
A&E's biography continues. Desi and Lucille were a couple their friends thought couldn't last. But their passionate romance never seemed to pause. Their movie, Too Many Girls, didn't do as well as the stage version of the show, but it was successful enough to mark Desi Arnaz as a rising star. Lucy's acting in that film was well received, but she was still well below star level. And as the film wrapped, she faced two big concerns. Lucy knew that in Hollywood at age 29, she had limited opportunities. And her relationship with 24-year-old Desi was rocky at best. Not that they weren't in love, but the new couple were facing a lengthy separation. Desi was due to resume his role on the stage, traveling to Chicago and then back to New York, where he did 5 shows a night at a club called the Roxy. Lucy had another in her string of B movies to finish, this one called A Girl, a Guy, and a Gob.
The main difference between Lucille and Desi was that she was disciplined. He liked to party, and as a result, it made it very difficult.
He had a double standard. You know, he was very jealous of his wife, but on the other hand, he felt it was his right as a man to have as many women as he wanted. None of them, of course, encroaching on Lucy's emotional territory. It was all just playing. And it came to the point where when he was on the road, Lucy would continually be calling him in his hotel room and not getting an answer. And he would call her back. It was almost like phone tag, and they would both become completely enraged with jealousy at the other one, just knowing they were with someone else.
She really cared about Desi, and she cared what he was doing and who he was getting involved with.
They tried to maintain the relationship by phone calls when they'd be in different parts of the country. And Lucille once said that she estimated that they spent $29,000 on long-distance calls shouting the one word, "What?" at high volume because they couldn't hear each other over the long-distance connections of the time.
There were 2 ways the relationship could go. Either they'd break up or they'd get married. Lucy convinced RKO to send her to New York to promote a movie, and she was in the middle of an interview with a fan magazine explaining how she never planned to marry when Desi burst into her suite at the Pierre Hotel. The moment the reporter left, he proposed. At first, she wasn't enthusiastic, but the next day, November 30th, 1930, they eloped and were married in Greenwich, Connecticut.
I was working at the Roxy Theater in New York, and she was in New York, and she was giving an interview about why we were not going to get married. I said, this lady's not going to come across with this article very good because I'll marry you tomorrow. She said, why? I said, I love you. So we got married.
He needed a ring to be married to her, so he sent a friend out who picked up a cheap one at Woolworth's. And years later, Desi wanted to replace that ring, and Lucy wouldn't hear of it. She loved it. It was like, it meant more to her than any expensive ring could possibly.
Lucille was not above predicting that the marriage would not last longer than 6 weeks. She believed that and told her friends that it would not last longer than 6 weeks. And she was also concerned about the age difference in the relationship because she was 6 years older than he was. And it was interesting that at the time when they applied for the marriage license that Lucille shaved 3 years off of her age and Desi added 3 years to his.
There was another more immediate problem. Desi was due back at the Roxy for one of his 5 shows that day. There would be no honeymoon, at least not that week. But when they arrived at the theater, they were greeted with a standing ovation. The dashing band leader and the B-movie queen, as a couple, were an instant hit. But like all newlyweds, they had a lot of adjusting to do.
Desi and Lucy had this different body temperature in their home. She put the window up. He put the window up. He liked it cold. She liked it hot. So he would think she was asleep. He would go and open the window. When she would thought he was asleep, she would go and close it.
The couple spent their newlywed days with Desi finishing his engagement at the Roxy and Lucy working on their next career move, which they knew would have to be in Hollywood. Desi signed a 3-year picture contract with Lucy's studio, RKO, taking far less money than he might have made as a singer, just so they could stay together. They bought a house in the San Fernando Valley and called it Desilu. Though they had a new home and Lucy was hoping for children, she wasn't planning to be a housewife. She was ambitious as ever. While Lucy was working steadily, she still was not getting top roles while at RKO. So at age 31, she left RKO and signed with MGM, a studio with a reputation for making new stars.
How about Hamlet giving Ophelia a nice big kiss, huh?
Well,
Huh?
no, I couldn't really.
Why not?
The move served her career well, but her personal life, like that of many Americans, was to receive a sudden shock. World War II broke out.
Si, Padre. Si. Yes, Father, I remember. I learned it by heart. Just like you say it.
Thinks he's talking to a priest.
Confiteo Deo Omnipotenti, Beata Maria Semper Virgine.
And in Spanish he's talking now.
Beato Michaelo Arcangelo. Beato
That's
Juan
Latin,
Battisti.
Sergeant. I taught Latin in the high school back in Kentucky.
Sanctis Apostoli, Pedro et Paulo, Onibus Santis, Evobes Fratis Cua, Peccabis Nimis Cogitatione.
I confess that I have sinned exceedingly.
Verbo et opere.
Thought, word, and deed.
Mea culpa.
Through my fault.
Mea culpa.
Through my fault. Through my most grievous fault.
The one good role that he got in an MGM movie called Bataan, which was a war picture, got him wonderful reviews. He had a great death scene, but immediately thereafter, he was drafted, and therefore his movie career came to a halt because whatever momentum that he had built dissipated by the fact that he was not able to be in any more pictures for several years.
If the separation caused by Desi's constant road work had damaged the marriage, the Army virtually killed it. After a brief stint overseas, Desi was transferred and put in charge of entertainment for the wounded at a base not too far from the couple's Desilu ranch. But he rarely came home, even on weekends.
There was a lot of separation during this period, and the jealousy intensified, and at one point Lucy actually filed for divorce, and she was granted a decree, but they actually got back together before they picked up the decree, so they invalidated the decree by spending the night together. So it was kind of a joke, I think, to them later.
After what might have been the shortest divorce in history, Lucy was finally given a chance to shine. The star makers at MGM put her together with legendary performers like Gene Kelly and Red Skelton, and they gave her a makeover that would last her a lifetime. Famed Hollywood hairstylist Sidney Gilleroff led the team. He declared her hair mousy, and since he felt there were already too many blondes in Hollywood, he dyed her hair flaming red, or tried to anyway. The first time it came out green. But after a few hours of hard, frantic work, the Lucy look, the look that became her trademark, was born. Biography's look at Lucy and Desi will continue.
She's a woman who knows what she wants.
At 18, she was Queen of Egypt, although no Egyptian blood flowed through her. She was regarded as a dangerous seductress, although she was celibate most of her life. She was said to have used Mark Antony for power, although she chose not to live without him. Go beyond the myth and discover Cleopatra on an all-new biography. Tomorrow on A&E.
You know you can get cash just across the street. But did you know you can get cash all across the country? Using the same card you use at the cash machines at home. That is, when your card has a plus. Because Plus marks the spot for cash when you travel. At cash machines in big cities and small towns. In all 50 states and beyond. So check your card and name your street.
Mr. Wagner, Marissa Thompson, how are you?
I'm here in my office, and I just wanted to confirm our appointment this afternoon. You're off Route 15, right? The proposal? Sure, I have it right here. Absolutely. I'll fax it, and we'll go over it. Jane, can you fax the sales proposal to Mr. Wagner? Sure. Oh, she is terrific. You'll have to meet her.
The Sharp Wizard, carried by the most organized people on Earth.
Most people will never see the art you display, the antiques you collect, the things in your home you care about. Which leaves only one possession that reflects your sense of style to the world. Acura. Some things are worth the price.
What inspires KitchenAid to create dishwashers this powerful? Refrigerators this fast? Ranges this enduring? And make them look this extraordinary? KitchenAid taps the forces of nature to perform beautifully in your home. KitchenAid, for the way it's made.
It might surprise you that a lot of folks do their holiday shopping at True Value. You see, we've got just what you need to wrap up a happy holiday. Still, some people just can't wait to get to those big discount stores. And wait. And wait. Well, now at True Value, this Rubbermaid bird feeder is just $7.77, and this True Tone telephone is just $9.97. So, why wait? True Value. Gifts are just around the corner.
A&E's biography returns to our look at Lucy and Desi. Despite her new image as a glamorous redhead, the studios seemed to have trouble finding appropriate roles for Lucy. She was still being cast as the comedic sidekick.
First time I saw you, I said to myself, here's a dirty, low-down, lily-livered coyote. Then, as I got to know you better, I figured you for a filthy, sneaking rat.
I grow on people like that.
Though she worked well with Bob Hope in a series of successful films, in 1944, Lucille Ball's popularity with the movie-going public dipped. From then on, she would only be offered supporting roles. Lucy blamed MGM and decided once again to leave her studio. Though she was still beautiful by any standards, the 36-year-old actress's chance at stardom seemed to have come and gone. So had Desi's. When he got out of the Army, he went back to touring with his band, and soon the marriage was in trouble again. There were rumors of Desi's infidelity, and he was drinking too much, so a decision was made. Lucille would leave Hollywood and would head for New York to be with her husband, who was back working in nightclubs. Being together had always smoothed over the problems the couple had suffered. In an effort to rekindle their romance, Desi and Lucy decided to get married again in 1949, this time in the Catholic Church. But as much as anything else, it was their careers that helped to keep them together, and radio that preserved the marriage.
Hello, Kay.
Lucille Ball. I adore you. I worship you. Every beat of my heart is a flame that burns your name in my soul.
Okay, Kay, don't be ridiculous. Well, you just met me.
Hey, listen, a chowhound doesn't have to wait for dinner to be hungry, you know.
She very shrewdly began to take any radio job that would come her way because she saw that radio was a way to survive in Hollywood as she got older.
Lucy and a popular actor named Richard Denning paired up in the 1948 radio show My Favorite Husband. It was a huge success, with a plot that would become even more popular later. Lucy became famous in the part of Liz Cooper, a housewife always involved in wacky schemes.
May I have my license now?
Not yet. I have some more questions to ask you. Eyes?
Yes, two. They're blue.
Thank you.
And red.
What?
My hair is red. That's the next question, isn't it?
Naturally.
Well, just a henna rinse now and then.
CBS wanted Lucy to move the My Favorite Husband show to television, but Lucy wanted to do a TV show with Desi.
She insisted on Desi when CBS wanted her to come into television with that property, The Favorite Husband, with Richard Denning and Gil Gordon, B. Benaderet, who were all marvelous. But she said, no Desi, no television. We said, oh, God, what are we going to do with a Cuban playing a drum?
Well, the network said, what are we going to do with a Cuban,
I said
too?
it first, though, and then...
CBS said no to Desi as the male lead, but the couple wouldn't give up. They created a vaudeville stage act and took it on the road to show the network that the American public would accept them as a husband and wife team.
She did the clown bit, she did Cuban Pete with me, in which she sang, they call me Sally Street, I'm the queen of the Vance Street, and boom, 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 and off my hat, off my head. And the audience throughout the country, they love us being together. So I said, well, now I don't care what the networks, the agencies, or anybody says. If those folks there likes us, that's it.
They did pique the interest of NBC, and that was enough to get CBS to finally move and to try and make a deal with Lucy to do a pilot with Desi. And Lucy said that she would do it with CBS if my father would be the producer and head writer. And so they made that deal in December of 1950. And the pilot was scheduled to be shot in February of 51, using a kinescope at CBS.
Lucy and Desi had loved working before a live audience, so they decided to try shooting their show live on film with 3 cameras. It was a new technique and a big risk, but so was the couple's transition from movies to TV.
The truth really is that Lucille's career in films had reached a standstill and was in fact in decline as she neared 40 years old, and the Latin dance craze was ending, and that music in popularity was grinding to a halt, so they really didn't have very many options by that point. So television, although it was an unknown commodity at the time, still was their most viable career opportunity, so it wasn't as much of a gamble, but more of a necessity.
Lucy and Desi were set in the leading roles of the new show, and now the question became who would play the supporting parts of Fred and Ethel Mertz, 2 old-time vaudevillians turned landlords. William Frawley, who had actually worked in vaudeville, heard about the show through the grapevine and asked for a tryout.
Gaylord Studio. Glad to meet you. How are you, Terry? Come on, kids. Okay. This is Jan, Joe, Eleanor, and Dora. How do you do? All right, out of the coats, kids. Come on, we got work to do here. Hurry it up.
Desi found Vivian Vance, who was actually 1 year younger than Lucille. And at first, Lucy didn't like that a bit.
Desi said, honey, I want you to meet Vivian Vance. And Lucille said, what part are you trying out for? And so Viv just kind of hesitated, and Desi said, for Ethel Mertz, honey. And Lucille said, well, you don't look like a landlady. And Desi said, what do you expect what do you think a landlady looks like? Well, I want peroxide hair and curlers in her hair and a chenille bathrobe and furry slippers. That's my idea. And fat. And so Viv says, well, Miss Ball, you should see me the first thing in the morning, because that's exactly what I look like.
At first, Lucy and Vivian Vance didn't seem to get along. There was some of that old Hollywood leading lady in Lucy. She insisted, and actually had it written in her contract, that Vivian Vance would always be at least 20 pounds heavier during the show. But later on, there would be no sign of those early frictions.
Vivian was invaluable. Great, sensational, wonderful to work with, perfect foil, show doctor, timing impeccable. Just, I get very emotional when you ask about Vivian. I loved her very much.
Viv laughed about it. Viv would say, do you know how much money it cost me when we first started this series in psychiatric help to work with her? There was a very rough period that they had when they started. I think there must have been some jealousy, and I think Viv always kind of, well, I'm sure she always thought, oh, why is Lucy the so-called pretty one? And I'm, you know, always, they make remarks about me and being dumpy, and indeed she wasn't dumpy. I mean, she was a very attractive woman. But I think there was a jealousy when they started, and they suddenly were enormously successful.
In March of 1951, as the pilot was being shown to potential sponsors, Lucy, at age 39, finally became pregnant with their first child. Now the question was, could they shoot enough shows before the pregnancy became too obvious? I mean, back then you couldn't even say the word pregnant on television. And to top that, advertisers were skittish about a Cuban male lead with a heavy accent in a comedy. And then there was the question of what to call the show. Lucy was clearly the star, but she insisted that Desi be part of the title. Thus, the I in I Love Lucy.
Desi was a real question mark, really for everybody, because Desi had never done this kind of thing before. And really nobody, including Desi, knew whether he could do it.
The conventional wisdom was that the show could not succeed. The casting was a question, Lucy was pregnant, the sponsors were nervous, but one afternoon, everyone got a first look at the film.
There were maybe 10, 12 of us jammed in a very small projection, and the lights went out, and we ran the very first I Love Lucy, and there wasn't a word said. Everybody just sat there, and I said to myself, my God, this thing looks terrific, and no one's saying a word. And there was a silence, and then Lucy was sitting right behind me, and she had slacks on, and she kicked the seat, and she said, Danny, that's a terrific first cut.
Even though potential sponsors had seen a terrific pilot, the only advertiser taking an interest in the new comedy was cigarette maker Philip Morris. With no one to bid against it, the company bought the show for less than half of most primetime programming of the day. On a Saturday, September 8th, 1951, Lucy and Desi brought their team together to film the first episode. The story, Lucy had been reading a mystery novel and decided her husband, Ricky, was behaving like the book's villain, that he was trying to kill her.
Let me go. Ethel, you can't do this to me. You're my best friend. I know I'm your best friend. That's why I can't stand to see you riddled with bullets. But Ethel!
Oh, hello, honey. There you are.
The ad CBS ran the day of the premiere was a simple one. I Love Lucy, it read, is the very funny story of a stage-struck wife whose husband thinks her place is in the kitchen. Within weeks, that basic premise would make Lucy and Desi America's favorite TV couple. And their company, Desi Lou, would soon become one of Hollywood's biggest producers of film programs, with shows like Our Miss Brooks, December Bride, and later on, The Untouchable, Star Trek, and a little thing called Mission Impossible. Thank you, Lucy. It seemed as if Lucy and Desi had it all, but eventually, the pressure of their success would take its toll. Biography will continue in a moment.
This shop is very much different now. Ford customers told us what they wanted. We have people up on the drive that greet them as soon as they come in. Their car is written up within a few minutes, and once we get the repair order in hand, we get a pretty good idea where to go and what we're looking for. The top priority is fix it right the first time, on time. Quality care standards, it must work pretty good. We get letters, cards, a handshake now and then. You know, people let us know. This is what they want.
Quality care people, quality care standards at your Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealer.
It's all on sale for Christmas.
What's on sale?
For 2 days only, everything is at Sears Brand Central. All major appliances, all electronics, all computers, all the brands you want.
All that on sale?
And you get all that at 0% finance charge.
0%. I like that.
Oh, that means no billing, no payments, no finance charge till May.
Till May? Thank you.
All appliances, all electronics on sale.
I've got my Sears charge ready.
Friday and Saturday only.
I can't afford not to go.
Only at Sears, where wishes come home for the holidays.
Can't be sure about where you stand. You can't be sure about what you plan. But you can be sure you can raise your hand. You can be sure to be dry. You can be sure to be dry.
Sure Solid has the most effective wetness fighting ingredient you can buy, so you can be sure to be dry.
You can't be sure you can meet the demand. You can't be sure about where you land. You can be sure you can raise your hand. You can be sure to be dry. You can be sure to be dry.
The war that's fought on the streets.
I've a warrant for your arrest. Don't move.
We fight that war every day.
When it comes to the law, everybody's the same.
There's a fine line between right and wrong.
He said you threatened to kill him.
Law and Order, tonight on A&E. It would be criminal to miss it.
I was afraid of the computer, but with Quicken, the world's #1 finance software, it's easy.
And to find out just how easy, call this number to try Quicken for just $9.95. Stop worrying about money. Quicken shows exactly where your money goes and exactly how much you have. Get all your financial information accurately organized in one place. Let Quicken pay your bills, track bank accounts, investments, taxes, budgets, and more. And it's simple because Quicken looks and works just like your checkbook, only easier. Pay a bill once, then next time Quicken remembers and does it all. See how Quicken's graphs instantly show you what you spent in any given month or on any given item. Get reports like these at the touch of a key.
And let Quicken reconcile your whole bank statement in less than 2 minutes.
So, if you have a PC with Windows, DOS, or a Mac, call now to try Quicken for only $9.95. That's right, only $9.95 to try Quicken.
Call 1-800-348-9590.
A&E's biography returns to our look at Lucy and Desi. From its premiere on Monday night, October 15th, 1951, I Love Lucy was an instant smash hit. The premise of the show was simple. Lucille Ball, playing the part of Lucy Ricardo, was a typical American housewife living in New York City who desperately wanted to break into show business. Her real-life husband, Desi Arnaz, played a successful band leader named Ricky Ricardo.
Aha! A scarf. Perfect. He would do the job quietly and neatly. Slowly he approaches the bed. Murder in his heart. And then...
But long before I Love Lucy hit the airwaves, Desi had made a key and daring decision about the show. He wanted to shoot live on film. Before then, the only way performances had been preserved was on kinescope, that is, taking a picture of the television screen. It was cheaper that way. Shooting performances rather than the end product turned out to be a stroke of genius that would make the couple wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. Back then, reruns hadn't been invented.
CBS had no film agreements at the time, and they wanted no part of it. In fact, that's how Desilu got the ownership of the show. Because Desi said, I'll put up the money personally for the differential between live and film, provided you, CBS, give me ownership rights in the show.
In a decision network executives would later have good cause to regret, CBS accepted the deal. Desilu Productions, the company Lucy and Desi put together, had been given a multi-million-dollar birthday present.
Since it was going to be live anyhow, CBS had nothing to lose because the residual value of the show under those circumstances was zero to them. As far as Desi was concerned, even though he didn't recognize or know or understand what residuals or reruns were going to be in the future and what the value was going to be, he felt it was going to be on film. You could always preserve it. The quality was going to be good. Lucy was a motion picture star.
Not anymore. Lucy became a television star as Monday night became I Love Lucy night. By the fourth episode, November 5th, 1951, 14 million people tuned into the show, and before long, it was the top-rated show in the nation, with 16 million viewers every week. And to this day, it remains popular in the reruns Desi's innovation made possible.
Nick at Night loves Lucy. I Love Lucy has come home to the home of classic TV.
Oh, honey, I can't believe it. We're really here.
Nick at Night has restored each episode to its full original classic form with new prints from the Desilu archives.
The sun never sets on Lucy. Somewhere at any time in the world, I Love Lucy is on. And Lucy has been in over 60 countries and is still a huge success internationally. And I think a lot of that is due to the physical comedy. You can dub it into another language and it still is really funny.
People have asked us, what do we think is the quality of Lucy that makes it last this long? I think it was just a combination of everything. We were all a lot younger and we were kind of cute and clever and they were marvelous. It was a great combination. We all came together.
So I don't usually use that word luck or lucky, but for want of a better one at the moment, it was God-given.
I Love Lucy would run for 193 episodes over 9 years. Number 1 in the ratings almost every week, never lower than number 3. The reruns live on to this day. It is said that somewhere in the world, at any given moment, any time of day, there is an I Love Lucy episode on the air. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz had come a long way from Jamestown, New York, and Santiago, Cuba, but they still had a long way to go as the first couple of American television.
She was brilliant at what she did. First of all, that face. You know, that face was a winner.
I Love Lucy, is something that happens once in a lifetime, if you're lucky enough to have it happen at all.
The Lucy-Desi combination, I think, was so powerful. This hot-tempered Cuban band leader and his wacky wife.
She was disciplined. He liked to party.
They still had a lot of regard for each other. They just couldn't live together. But they still cared about the other one. They wasn't meant to stay together.
It was a marriage that wouldn't last, but a love affair that never really ended. Lucy and Desi, whether married in real life or not, have remained the first couple of American television. And on television, their love affair has lasted more than a lifetime. In 1952, the television show I Love Lucy was starting its second hit season, and the real-life husband and wife team of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were welcomed into living rooms all across the country every Monday night. The advertisers' concerns about pairing the zany redhead and the Cuban band leader had been swept away.
Wait a minute,
The show became the most successful television program since the reign of Milton Berle. As the Ricardos, Lucy and Desi had become the first couple of American television.
Well, I'm your piggyback girl. Are you tired of running down the listless? Do you pop out at parties? Are you unpopular?
Whether selling Vitamita Vegemin or trying to wrap chocolates on a conveyor belt, Lucy's antics captured the imagination of the American public and turned Monday nights into an evening of laughter.
Fine, you're doing splendidly. Speed it up a
We'd done the storyline. We got to the place where she needed a job, so we all looked in the yellow pages. Said C, said Candy. How about Candy making? Went down to the farmer's market here in Hollywood. Watched this little lady making candy real fast, going along like that. So that was it. We knew that she would have fun with it, and she certainly did.
We took Lucy down to Michelli's pizza place, and she got in the window and started making pizza, and of course attracted a huge crowd. And that was one of the times that she ad-libbed things, because she let one of them land on her head, and then she peeked through and made a little mask, and that wasn't in the script.
Everything came together on the show I Love Lucy. The writing, the characters, the plot was really very strong, and it was just something that felt very natural, even though it was a bit bizarre.
In the 1950s, Lucille Ball on television was enjoying bigger stardom and success than any of the Hollywood actresses with whom she'd competed in her early years. And to add to it all, after suffering several miscarriages, she had given birth to her first child, a daughter, Lucy, and Desi's running around seemed to be a thing of the past. Their work and their life together seemed perfect.
She was looking at being 40 years old and not really having achieved all of the things that she had set out to. And then everything happened at once. It's like she became pregnant. She had her first child. She had a hit show. She became the most famous person in America.
When they were shooting the pilot for I Love Lucy, they had to hide Lucy's pregnancy. In May of 1952, she was pregnant again, and again the pregnancy caused problems. The sponsors and the networks were still worried about Lucy appearing pregnant on the air.
Desi said, Lucy's going to have a baby, another baby. You know, how long is the show going to have to be off the air? What are we going to do? He was sure that it was going to be the end of the show. And my dad immediately said, congratulations, this is wonderful. I was wondering what we were going to do for the next season. We'll just have Lucy Ricardo have a baby. And Desi didn't believe that that was possible because the network wouldn't even let them share a double bed.
When Lucy was pregnant, everyone was very concerned because at that time, actresses didn't appear pregnant on the screen, and particularly, comedy actresses. And yet Lucy and Desi, of course, were thrilled that they had wanted to have a baby badly.
It was a tremendous battle with CBS and Philip Morris over having a pregnant woman appear on television and have the character have a baby on TV. But they ended up prevailing, and it became I believe, the most watched show for the next 15 years. Desi ran off to tell Lucy she was going to have two babies, one on TV and one in real life.
This time, Art would be allowed to imitate life. And when Lucy told Ricky they would be having a baby, it was an extraordinarily intimate look into the real lives of Lucy and Desi.
Honey, no.
Yes.
Really? Why didn't you tell me?
Why, you didn't give me a chance.
Are you kidding?
No.
It's me!
One of the things we had to decide ahead of time,
boy or girl.
A boy or a girl. And in those days, they didn't have any way of knowing. They didn't have all the ultrasound and all. So we just had to take a stab at it. And of course, they told me in the hospital room, they all screamed and said, it is a boy. You know, we had said it was going to be a boy, which was really fun.
January 19th, 1953, the biggest television audience in history tuned in to watch I Love Lucy. And with 44 million viewers in attendance, Ricky rushed from an appearance at his club, still in full costume, to the hospital. Lucille Ball had always been known for her timing, but no one could have planned a performance like this, because on the very same day viewers anxiously awaited the birth of little Ricky on TV, Lucille gave birth to her real-life son, Desi Jr. Headlines across the country would announce the birth of Desi Jr. and his television alter ego, little Ricky, but they would not be the only headlines for Lucy and Desi that year. In 1953, the McCarthy era was well underway, and in September, widely read columnist Walter Winchell reported that America's most popular comedian had once registered as a communist.
And the phone rang. And Desi said, I'd expect some people about 1 o'clock. And this was 9. I said, what are you getting, a party? And he said, no, honey. You're in trouble.
Lucy cleared her name only when she showed that she had registered as a communist simply to appease her eccentric socialist grandfather who had raised her. She had never been political at all. It wasn't funny at the time, but later Desi would joke that there was nothing communist about his wife.
The only thing red about her was her hair. And even that was not legitimate.
Lucille Ball had survived the anti-communist McCarthy scare of the 1950s, and I Love Lucy remained a huge hit. America's favorite couple went back to doing what they did best, making people laugh. Biography's look at Lucy and Desi will continue.
Shaping that's natural, not a look that's flattering, not. Today's Cross Your Heart underwires with the crisscross shaping that's as fashionable as it is flattering. Cross Your Heart underwires from Playtex.
Before the new Nissan Maxima became available to the public, it was tested on over 100 specially replicated road surfaces at our proving grounds. This helped us in developing a unique suspension that allows the Maxima to ride smoother than an Acura Legend LS, get out corner a BMW 540i, which means in a Maxima you'll own the road, whether it's smoothly paved or otherwise. The new Maxima from Nissan.
To unlock your body's potential, we proudly offer Soloflex. 32 old-fashioned iron-pumping exercises, each correct in form and balance, all on a simple machine that fits in the corner of your home. For a free brochure, call anytime.
She's a woman who knows what she wants.
At 18, she was Queen of Egypt, although no Egyptian blood flowed through her. She was regarded as a dangerous seductress, although she was celibate most of her life. She was said to have used Mark Antony for power, although she chose not to live without him. Go beyond the myth and discover Cleopatra on an all-new biography. Tomorrow on A&E.
On a balmy afternoon in the City of Angels, some people at ARCO are working on a new formula for gasoline. One that'll help cars run 99% pollution-free. Just about the same time, down in Torrance, Toyota is finishing up a plan to design and build more of those cars right here in our own backyard. Over in the state capitol, they've just figured out how to streamline the permitting process. Utilities like Pacific Gas and Electric can use that kind of thinking. It helps them help businesses expand and stay healthier. All this while Kaiser Permanente, the people who practically invented healthcare services, find better ways to help us stay healthy. But that's just business as usual in the 7th largest economy in the world, which just happens to be a state that could help the well-being of your business. California, the climate's right.
Now get 50 issues of the new New Yorker for just $18. Save $107 off the cover price. And get this special cartoon collection free with your paid subscription. Call 1-800-847-7200 now.
A&E's biography returns to our look at Lucy and Desi.
Yes, America's favorite television program, I Love Lucy, will be back. You'll love her more than ever. You'll get more laughs, more fun, more thrills. Remember when the whole nation was waiting for little Ricky to be born, and suddenly the great moment arrived?
Ricky, this is it.
This is
With the success of I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball was regarded as the reigning queen of comedy. And she was given most of the credit for the success of Desilu, the production company that she and Desi had founded. But while Lucy was undoubtedly the marquee value, Desi worked tirelessly and brilliantly to turn a profit on the relatively small budget for the show, and then to create, produce, and sell dozens of other network programs, ranging from Our Miss Brooks to The Untouchables. On screen, he was always the second banana, but in the boardroom in those early days, he was unchallenged.
He was really a sharp person, and because of Lucy, her flamboyance and everything, and they thought here was a woman that was, that was out in front. But I think they were very equal. I mean, it was a symbiotic relationship that he should never be downplayed because he was there, and without him, there wouldn't have been a Lucy show, I'm sure.
Time magazine asked me one time, if you had to split the percentage of the success of I Love Lucy between yourself and the actors and the actresses and the writers, how would you do it? Who would you give the credit? I said, well, give Lucy 90% and split the rest between us.
While Desi's talent as a straight man didn't get him all the recognition he deserved, his greatest contribution to the partnership was behind the scenes. It was his production innovation, insisting on shooting the shows with a then brand new technique, 3 cameras before a live audience, that led to huge financial success.
The 3-camera system, which was used for the I Love Lucy pilot, became the standard for the industry and is still used today, even with all of the advancements in electronic recording. They still are basically doing the 3-camera techniques that Desi started with on I Love Lucy.
What made the technique so revolutionary was that it, in reality, created reruns.
Is it something tangible, Miss Pierce?
Before I Love Lucy, television shows had been preserved only by filming as kinescopes, which were made by filming the show directly off a television screen as it was being broadcast.
Would it help if I knew what tangible meant?
The quality of the recording wasn't good, but it didn't cost much to do it. Filming the actual performances was more expensive, but it resulted in a program that could be televised over and over again. Desi's sense of when to spend money and when to save it was legendary, but never demonstrated quite as well as in that first decision about how to put the show on the air.
Working at Desi really, for writers especially, it was a wonderful, almost magical experience because there was never a budget, it seemed. I mean, the writers said that if they created something in their minds, if they could work it out physically, there was no question asked of whether we could afford it.
We were so spoiled. You go down the hall and say, we've got this idea, we need a big movie star. Can you get John Wayne? Or can we have a horse on the stage and we need a train moving? And one time we had the whole end of a liner, a ship, go off the stage, and Lucy came down by helicopter.
Yeah.
We did it in front of the audience. And he'd say, well, let me call the guys. And he'd call special effects and props. And he never said, that's very expensive. So we never thought about it. And I think it's one reason we could write so many things. She would do anything and he would pay for anything or support
That kind
it.
of sums it up, Madeline.
Pretty much. That is the secret. I've told you here.
Thank you very much.
Desi Lou started out as a mom and pop operation with Desi and Lucy as mom and pop. They'd have company picnics with contests for kids judged by Lucy and Desi. A soundstage became their second home, complete with dressing room converted into a living room and kitchen. For Lucy, family was becoming more important. Both she and Desi had brought their mothers to Hollywood. Lucy's mother, Dee Dee, had missed most of her daughter's childhood, but now mother and daughter were making up for lost time.
Lucy's mother was very important to her. She came to every show she ever did, and she always introduced her to the audience as my beautiful Dee Dee. And all the shows we did, she'd bring a little group of people, and it was like our good luck charm, I think.
If family at the studio had meant picnics and contests for the kids, Lucy had always made a distinction between her personal and professional life. While Desi Lou had I Love Lucy and grew to produce other hit shows and lease sound stages to dozens of programs, Lucille Ball's reputation grew too. She became known as one of the toughest and most demanding bosses in Hollywood.
She wouldn't say, oh, darling, would you mind moving a little to the left or to the right? She'd go, move, over here, over here. And people, I think I know they were intimidated by her, a rather brusque sort of thing. And you just learn not to take it personally.
A lot of people don't love Lucy, especially when they're working. They don't think of it that way. But I had a show to get on, and we had our timing down a certain way. We had to accomplish a lot of things by a certain time, and if I hadn't accomplished them, I knew that I was way behind.
But those who worked with her say Lucy never forgot that she had had trouble getting started in the business, too.
When I first came out here, I was working on her show. You know, I had a dinner is served part, dinner is served kind of line, and I walked in and I did my speech. And about halfway through it, I began to feel that I wasn't doing well, that they weren't laughing. So I sort of, went, well, she said, hold it. And everybody froze, and she said, now let me tell you, Carol, don't you lose heart in the middle of a speech. You get in there, and you stay with it, and you believe in it, and go with it. And she really let me have it.
If Lucy wanted perfection on stage, Desi wanted it off stage. He was moving to expand. Using I Love Lucy as the financial cornerstone, he decided to go after and buy RKO, the studio he and Lucy once worked for.
He was gone from the set. One time Lucy said, I think he just bought RKO.
And he had.
He had. He had amazing ability to keep everything in his head, and it was just innate. I don't know where it came from.
He said, if we're ever going to grow, if we're ever going to be other than a one-shot show, we got to do it. So she said, okay. Got to give her credit. She said, okay. Once he explained it to her, where we were going, what he had in mind, she said, okay. And she put all of her fortune on the line, and we bought the studio. And from that point on, the studio skyrocketed to become the biggest, the most important independent studio in the industry until it was sold to Paramount.
Buying RKO, the studio where Lucy had first toiled for $125 a week, marked the arrival of Desilu as a new Hollywood powerhouse. Over the years, the studio would produce 16 primetime shows. But as Desilu grew, so did the pressures on Desi himself. He was trying to develop and sell new shows, all the while running the studio, and that led to new pressures on the marriage of the most popular couple on television.
Jesse, isn't that wonderful? Oh, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to us. Just think, you and I, aren't you excited?
Well, I might be if I knew what it was all about.
Huh? Oh, that was Don Sharp. Ed Sullivan is going to do the whole show about us.
Wow.
How about that?
Oh, boy. All about us?
Yeah.
Oy.
Are you nervous?
Nervous? Why should I be nervous? Are you nervous? No.
I Love Lucy was about to begin its 4th season when Ed Sullivan invited the couple onto a show for a special hour tribute.
Now, Mr. Sullivan, you had something you wanted to say to us?
Yeah, but I'm so winded. I thought when you came out of New York, I'd love to have you on Toast to the Town.
You'd like us to take a bow from the audience?
Sure, honey, that's what he means.
Oh,
sure.
No. I want to do the whole show about you two.
About us? Oh, my heavens, Jesse, did you hear that? Ed, did you hear? Oh, you told me, yeah. Toast to the Town and the whole slice about us.
Lucy wanted to give credit to her co-stars, actors William Frawley and Vivian Vance, the same woman she had worried about when first casting the show.
Everyone should be fortunate enough to work with these two. They're blessed with an unfailing sense of humor, a wish to do their best at all times, from first rehearsal on, an understandable pride in their work that has, without a doubt, been a top contributing factor to the success of Lucy. Thank you, Bill.
But there could be no doubt that Lucy's greatest love was right there on the other side of Ed Sullivan. She and Desi had been through a lot getting to the top together, and now Lucy was showing the world just how she felt.
Oh, you get so emotional up here. Now then, there's another character in our show. His name escapes me at the moment. But this guy, who seems to be in all places at once, making like an actor, a banker, a politician, in short, a producer, gets my vote as the greatest producer of all time. And I have 2 little Arnazes at home to prove it. Jesse, I love you, signed Lucy.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you, Ed. Thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I think if it wouldn't have been for Lucy, I would have stopped trying a long time ago because I was always the guy that didn't fit. When she did My Favorite Husband on the radio, they said that I wasn't the type to play the part. Then finally she wanted to do the television show, and she says, well, I want to do it with Desi. So everybody again said, well, he's not right to play your husband. Finally, one executive at CBS said, well, maybe the audience would buy him because after all, they have been married for 13 years. And you know something, though, that I really want to tell you tonight? What Tex O'Rourke said about my first job in this country was cleaning bird cages. It's very true. We came to this country and we didn't have a cent in our pockets.
From cleaning canary cages to this night here in New York, it's a long ways. And I don't think there's any other country in the world that could give you that opportunity. I want to say thank you. Thank you, America. Thank you.
The 193 episodes of I Love Lucy would be filmed between October 1951 and April of 1960. It was unchallenged on Monday nights. But as the years passed and Desi's work took him increasingly away from the set and away from Lucy, the old pressures of jealousy and suspicion returned. The harder Desi worked, it seemed, the harder he played.
Desi was working very hard to run the studio. He was also drinking very hard, and the problems in the marriage intensified. He still had an eye for other women, and he got in trouble a couple of times, which brought attention to his philandering.
On television and in public, Lucy and Desi were the picture of domestic happiness. But privately, the two were constantly fighting.
And I remember hearing them scream, and my mother was leaning over him with her long red nails. They were poised at him like that. And she said, with her teeth gritted in her mouth in a horrible position, "I wish you were dead."
I remember word for word. You know, I was 6 years old. I remember word for word what they said.
It wasn't always fight, fight, fight. I never would have gone there. But there are times when it got pretty violent, and the maid would come out of the kitchen and separate them, and I would hold Lucy, she'd hold Desi, she was a very big woman, and things would calm down. And as it calmed down, of course, it would proceed from as if nothing happened.
Being a happily married couple in television and then being unhappily married at home was a strange paradox. It helped to go to work, if you know what I mean. But once we were on the set, it was a happy marriage.
Offstage, the fights continued and more damage was done. And soon, the most visible couple in America would suffer the most public breakup. Biography's look at Lucy and Desi will continue.
People are much more satisfied than they have been in the past. Now with quality care standards, we have some guidelines to follow. This is what the customers want. They want to have their appointment within a day. They want to have their car fixed right the first time. This is them speaking. Anything we can do to make it better. It's not just meeting the standards that people are setting for us, but exceeding them. Something we're doing's working.
Quality care people, quality care standards at your Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealer.
Let's see Saturn.
Doing your homework?
Yeah, almost done.
Programs like Redshift really take off with a Pentium processor inside your PC.
Now let's see the Kirathi system.
The Intel Pentium processor.
He is the golden boy of River Highlands. He steps up to the team.
Programs like PGA Tour Golf swing into action with a Pentium processor inside your PC.
It's in the hole.
The Intel Pentium processor.
We've painted the morning sun in Santa Barbara that burns away those blue-gray mists that cool the coastal vines and brighten all the colors in the grapes that go to make a brighter shade of Chardonnay. Meridian Chardonnay, raised in California sunlight, aged in French oak. This is the art of Meridian. The bright, rich flavors in every glass of Meridian Chardonnay.
It was war between the states, romanticized, idealized, the ultimate turning point in our nation's history, a war of heroes and heroics for an undying, unwavering cause, where farm fields became killing fields, where men fought and died for their beliefs. The Union and the Confederacy, the blue and the gray, the war that shaped the face of America. Civil War Journal, Sunday on A&E.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
All the moments.
John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock.
The shared memories. All the people who've shaped our world.
The American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
The events we'll never forget.
As they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
All the times we've heard about and talked about.
I have a dream
all the passion,
The greatest champion of all time.
the pain,
Well, I'm not a quitter.
and the joy. All of history, all in one place. Coming January 1st, the History Channel. Call your cable operator today and begin your historic journey.
A&E's biography returns to our look at Lucy and Desi.
Now listen, everybody, quiet. There's too many people telling him what to do. You're confusing this poor boy. Only one person give instructions. Take it easy. Slowly. Slowly, that's right. That's right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Stop. Go.
Lucille and Desi were trying everything to keep the marriage going, but things that had worked before, like long trips together and working with each other, this time were not helping.
I didn't tell you to turn right.
You said turn right here, and I turned right.
You didn't let me finish. I was trying to tell you to turn left. What I was trying to say is you turn right here left.
Turn right here, left.
Exactly.
We're just going along as we please, breezing along with the breeze.
Their movies, The Long, Long Trailer and Forever Darling, were moderately successful at the box office, but that success did not spill over to the couple's personal life. Back on the set of I Love Lucy, their relationship seemed more like an armed truce. Rehearsals and shows went off perfectly, but Lucy and Desi had practically stopped speaking with each other.
It was like two trains slowly coming to a head-on collision, and part of it was Desi's drinking. It just got the best of him. It was tragic because he was a brilliant guy. And I think a lot of his drinking came out of frustration.
Well, at first, we just loved the guy, so that we didn't care what he did as long as he did the job and he was doing it beautifully. So he may have been drinking earlier than we surmised, but in the morning at 10 o'clock, if he ordered tomato soup, look out, because it's loaded with vodka then. And toward the end, it only take a couple of sips, and he was just blotto, and it was terrible.
Desi would later say that if they'd stuck with I Love Lucy and never expanded the business, perhaps the marriage might have lasted. Instead, he spent a lot of time away from the family, and his drinking increased. Lucy was growing tired of competing with other women, and in November of 1959, they had their final blowout.
When Lucy and Desi were breaking up, I think that was the heartbreak of a lifetime to her. I think when they broke up, people went, why? And I thought, well, they were together 19 or 20 years with each other day and night, building an empire, her stardom, all of that. It's amazing. I mean, that's hard to handle. And I think that Desi, was just the love of her life.
The real-life couple, Lucy and Desi, had separated, but they still had a few last episodes of their show to tape. The final script called for the show to close with a kiss in which the television couple, Lucy and Ricky, made up one last time.
Let me take this. With all these exploding cigars around, I never know when I'll need a spare.
Where you going?
I'll sleep in the car.
The final scene of I Love Lucy included Lucy and Desi's final on-screen kiss. At the filming, the embrace seemed to last forever, with the studio in total silence. Finally, Lucy looked up at Desi, who was directing the episode, and said, "You're supposed to yell, cut." After a moment's pause, he said, "Cut."
When the final day was there, he just came in and we said our goodbyes, and he said, "I hope I'm going to see you later." And the only thing that he took was a photo cube from his desk that had pictures of the kids on it. He didn't clean out any desks. He didn't do anything. He just took that cube and then walked, and that was it. It was very touching.
It was a day that stunned the nation. Everyone had thought the couple on television was a perfect match. But that day, the headlines declared Lucy and Desi were officially divorced. It was the end of their 20 years together, and it also seemed to mark the beginning of the end of their careers. After the divorce, Lucy tried to throw herself into work. She starred in the Broadway musical Wildcat and a movie called The Facts of Life.
Yes, Lucy has a problem. And who do you think it is? Bob Hope. It's the most inspired romantic comedy idea in years. Bob Hope as somebody else's husband, falling in love with Lucille Ball, who's somebody else's wife.
Oh, Larry, we shouldn't.
I know.
Larry.
Gesundheit. And before either of them knows what's happened, they're both learning the facts of life.
Desi's drinking got worse, and like Lucy, he was finding his work less satisfying. Each realized, as much as their fans wanted them back together, it was impossible. Both remarried. For Lucy, in November 1961, stand-up comedian Gary Morton became her second husband. Desi remarried, too, a socialite named Edie Hirsch. Even afterward, their two children kept trying to bring the parents back together, taking them repeatedly to a film about a divorced couple who remarry after seeing just how much they really loved each other.
Desi was already married to Edie. Gary and I were already married, and we were still looking at Parent Trap until finally the seventh time we said, kids, now listen. It's too late.
I think they still had a lot of regard for each other. They just couldn't live together. But they still cared about the other one. They wasn't meant to stay together.
They protected each other, which I thought was very touching. I never realized or never really thought that there was a divorce there. Edie was the girlfriend and Gary was the boyfriend, but they were still together some way or another.
Even though they both remarried, they were never really able to capture the love and passion of their marriage to each other.
Now on her own, Lucy was reunited with Bob Hope on 2 films, but her career seemed stalled. And Desi was having trouble with the studio, where despite the success of shows like The Untouchables, it was getting into financial trouble.
Lucy, what are your plans now? Do you plan to go back into television?
Well, yes. You're jumping the gun a little. It's just about to be announced tomorrow, I think. I'm going back and do a series, believe it or not, starting in, well, you'll see it in October. And I'm doing it with much trepidation. I don't know how I got talked into it, but I am.
Can you tell us anything about it?
No, I can't. Not right now.
Will it be a situation comedy?
I can't tell you right now. It's
going to be a comedy.
It's
got to be.
Oh, yeah.
In an effort to turn things around, Lucy came up with a new situation comedy, not unlike I Love Lucy, but this time, love was gone.
I don't think it is the classic that I Love Lucy is, in part because of Desi. The Lucy-Desi combination, I think, was so powerful, and part of it was because they were husband and wife in real life. But I think it was also the contrast between this hot-tempered Cuban band leader and his wacky wife that really was part of the magic of that show.
In The Lucy Show, Lucy played the widowed Lucille Carmichael, and Vivian Vance returned as her sidekick. And despite their divorce, Desi was also back calling the shots as executive producer. The magic seemed to return for a while, but it wasn't long before Desi resigned as president of the company and sold Lucy his shares in Desilu.
They tried to exist together, but Desi's personal problems became terrible to her, and she couldn't tolerate them any longer, and it came to that point where it had to be one or the other. And he was the gentleman about it, always the gentleman said, Lucy, you decide. You want to be the president and be in charge? Then you buy me out, or I will buy you up. But I'm going to give you the first opportunity. And she said, I'll buy you out. And it was that day he was gone.
She bought Desi out, and he just disappeared. He was racing horses and doing other activities for a number of years, and then he did come back into the business with Desi Arnaz Productions, and was successful for about 3 years. And then he just disappeared.
Lucille would soon be completely on her own when Vivian Vance decided to retire from the series. And now, as the studio head, Lucy would develop her own vision. She brought lavish, expensive new productions like Star Trek and Mission Impossible to television, but the daring and innovative shows only continued to drain Desilu financially.
Lucy made the decision to go with doing the pilots and committing to deliver them to the networks if they ordered.
And we tried and tried and tried. It was the most expensive show that Desilu had ever undertaken. In fact, Ed Hawley and I worked on the cost and the budget with Herb. Every dime that was coming into the company from the licensing fee went into the production of that show.
And I told her again that I felt this would cause such financial drains on the company that we would have to go find a buyer for the company, because either that or go bankrupt. We just couldn't finance it. The bank would not loan us a dime on the value of a show.
In 1967, Lucy was forced to sell out to Gulf and Western, the new owners of Paramount Pictures, in a $17 million deal.
All Lucille Ball wanted to do was perform. And I don't think she was ever interested in running the studio at all. It kind of gave her, people thought, oh, Lucille Ball is running this great studio. I think she had people doing it for her, and then I think she got bored with it, really bored with it. I just don't think she liked that at all.
I'm very happy to get rid of the 3 studios all at one time. I am not inclined to be delighted with being a businesswoman. I much prefer working in my little arena, doing the shows, and staying within that part of the career making. But big business never thrilled me.
In 1968, on her own, Lucy decided to try another variation on the I Love Lucy format.
Here's Lucy.
Critics would agree it wasn't as good as the first 2 tries, but Lucy's personal popularity kept it running for 6 years, and her children, Lucy and Desi Jr., became regulars in the cast. But for both Lucy and Desi, the late 60s were a time of great strain, and it showed as they worked.
She was a totally different person on the set. And what I mean by that, she wasn't always very patient or very kind or very nice with people. She would always find, it seemed, I shouldn't say always, frequently she would find someone to pick on, someone who she felt was vulnerable. And she would tear them down until they would cry. It was very, very pathetic and very uncomfortable.
More than 25 years after they began their life together, Lucy and Desi's reign as the first couple of American television was over. Biography will continue in a moment here on A&E.
Tomorrow on Biography, Cleopatra. Next week, watch A&E's presentation of the American Revolution. Biography returns Wednesday with Harry Truman.
MCI has important news that will have the whole world talking. Now, Friends Around the World gives you the lowest priced international calls to any 3 numbers you choose. And not just for a limited time. You'll get great savings every day of the week, every week of the year, to more than 280 countries and places worldwide. It's never been easier to call the people you choose. Call MCI today and join Friends Around the World. It's the best way in the world to save.
What's the matter, son?
I'm kind of worried about a package I sent out for Mr. Jones.
Cup of coffee? Well, sending out that package is a big responsibility. Jones knows you'll come through. Hard work, faith, trust in each other. That's what it's all about. Besides, in over 20 years, FedEx has never let me down.
What if I didn't use FedEx?
Well, then, you're dead.
Next time, use FedEx.
Hit the lights on your way out.
God grant us wisdom and fortitude. William Daniels as John Adams.
Passion governs, and she never governs wisely.
Charles Durning as Ben Franklin.
Let us not fall altogether.
Kelsey Grammer as Benedict Arnold. The voices of a world premiere event. The first American dream. The American Revolution, beginning Sunday, only on A&E.
Turn it off, honey.
Watch the arrow. Let's cut here, add sound, drop in the title, and copy it to the VCR.
Mom, it's for you.
And physical projections for Hong Kong.
Great work.
In the fourth quarter.
Who did you hire to put this together?
I did it in-house.
In years to come, you'll be able to say that when Aurora was ready to go, so were you. See what happens when you demand better? Aurora by Oldsmobile.
I sampled some 60 wines in the Jadot cellars, but so fine was the quality, I emerged more exhilarated than exhausted.
The extraordinary quality of Jadot's white wines has been matched by even more fabulous red wines.
We only make reds and whites, though our reviews produce the occasional blush. Louis Jadot, impeccable burgundies, from $7 to $150.
A&E's biography returns to our look at Lucy and Desi. In 1974, both Lucy and Desi were at a professional low. Here's Lucy was dropped from the CBS schedule, and Desi's production of The Mothers-in-Law had been canceled by NBC after 2 lackluster seasons, finishing dead last in the ratings. Lucy spent the several years doing guest appearances, and Desi virtually disappeared from the public eye again, and his drinking was taking a heavy toll.
Desi's drinking had become a problem to his personal life and his business life, both. He was no longer really functioning. He had gone through several medical examinations and programs, and to the extent that he had me at one point go to Cedars of Lebanon Hospital before he was to be discharged, at which time he was going to have the results given to him on all of their examinations, and I knew what was coming. I knew the 2 doctors who were going to do it, and they stood at the foot of the bed and said, "Desi, your liver has been damaged. If you continue to drink, you're going to kill yourself."
At age 61, Lucy broke her leg in a skiing accident. It might have spelled the end of her career, but just like when she was young, Lucy wouldn't let it get in her way. She tried a screen version of the musical Mame, and it was panned by the critics. Her television special, Lucy Calls the President, barely made it to the screen when Lucy, who was coping with the death of her mother, became impossible to work with on the set.
Lucille's mother, Dee Dee, had died not long before, so apparently Lucille had great anguish and rage, apparently, at just the loss of her mother and not able to deal with it directly. Apparently, she treated Vivian very badly during the taping, and one person who was attending the dress rehearsal said that Vivian came to her after Vivian had just had a stroke and she was on medication, came to her holding up 2 dresses and said to Lucille, "Which one do you think I should wear?" And Lucille said, "What difference does it make? You look like a cow in anything you wear." And Vivian burst into tears and ran off the stage.
Lucille's last attempt at series television came when she was 75 years old, but Life with Lucy was canceled after only 8 episodes.
The reviews really took a lot of wind out of her sails. They really hurt her deeply, but she was so excited, and of course nothing can take the wind out of your sails. Like after a week and 2 weeks in production, your premiere episode comes on, and the critics are just laying for you, which it seemed that they were. They were unkind beyond what the show deserved. It really hurt her, and then she started to question everything. Yeah. You know, should I have come back?
And she kept saying to us, "We're a family show. You know, why aren't we getting the same ratings? How come we're not appreciated? We're doing family things, you know?" And it was really hard for her. It was very, very hard for her to understand why it wasn't working for her the way she wanted it to.
While Desi never returned to series television, he did write his autobiography. and Desi's book is filled with stories about how much he would always love Lucy. Even Lucy seemed to come to understand their undying love for one another, and in those later years, they were even able to spend some time together, teasing each other while playing with their grandchildren.
All my life I've been telling you to speak in Spanish. All
your life you've been telling me I don't know how to speak
No,
English.
I've been telling you to speak Spanish to the kids.
They made fun of me.
Now he tells.
Óyeme, Simón. Tú y yo vamos a hablar en español, ¿verdad?
I saw news people talk to her and they say, well, you built the studio anyway and it was your talent and this and like that. Lucy would say, that's where you're wrong. Desi did it. As angry and as sad as she was able to compartmentalize those emotions. And like that, she said, Desi did it. She said, I would have maybe had a series, but I would have been a hired hand, you know, a hired gun. She said, Desi is the one who did it. She said he was a genius.
Desi was teaching at San Diego State University when he was diagnosed with lung cancer. He spent the remainder of his life reminiscing with his children about happier times when they were all together.
My father had this amazing sense of wonder at the miracle of nature. And he'd just shake your hand and walk you around and say things to you about, you know, look at that sunset. God really outdid himself tonight, you know.
Lucy Arnaz stayed with her dad during the final days of his illness, and on November 30, 1986, listened as Lucy and Desi spoke on the telephone one last time, telling each other how much they loved each other on what would have been their 46th wedding anniversary. Less than 2 days later, Desiderio Arnaz died with his daughter by his side.
He died with me in my arms, and we loved him very much.
While the public mourned, Desi's death sent Lucy into a deep depression. She tried to fight it with a string of appearances. In March of 1989, she took her final public bows at the Academy Awards.
I like what Bob and I are doing tonight, introducing the young Academy Award winners of the next century.
Nice to see you.
At age 77, Lucy was looking forward to a trip to her childhood home in Jamestown, New York, where she was to attend a ceremony honoring her career. Instead, she was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles for emergency heart surgery.
She had her clothes picked out, and it was a big disappointment to her that she couldn't make this trip. And it was like the second thing she said to me coming out of the anesthesia. First thing was, wouldn't you know this is the day I was supposed to have my hair done? Which is true, is exactly what she said. And then she said, well, I guess there goes the Jamestown trip.
Cedars-Sinai Information Center, Vicki speaking.
The hospital was deluged with flowers and people calling to wish Lucy well. But 1 week later, on April 26, 1989, Lucille Desiree Ball died.
When Lucy died, Lucy Jr. found beside her bed. Lucy was going to have, Lucille Ball was going to have, she was thinking about when she was young, the things that she would love to have had on a picnic. And there were deviled eggs. She was making a list beside her bed and things about her youth.
God has her now, but thanks to television, we're going to enjoy her for years and years and years.
I think if Lucy came around today, it would be the #1 show. And there's a lot of great sitcoms out there, but Lucy would be the winner today.
Lucy is gone, but she'll always be with us. I love Lucy. Everybody loves Lucy.
I love Lucy and she loves me. We're as happy as two can be. Sometimes we quarrel, but then how we love making up again. Lucy kisses like no one can. She's my missus and I'm her man. And life is heaven, you see. 'Cause I love Lucy, yes, I love Lucy. And Lucy loves me. Everybody.
Although both Lucy and Desi's final years were filled with sadness, they're happy times together as the Ricardos live on. Year after year, Lucy's still sitting ringside at the Tropicana about to tell Ricky he's going to be a father, or Ricky, still in his jungle mask, is taking his first look at his newborn son. That's how we'll always remember them. America's favorite TV couple. And now, let's see what's coming up on our next biography.
She was Egypt's greatest queen and seductress. But there's much more to her fascinating story than Hollywood's images may lead you to believe. The extraordinary life of Cleopatra. Tomorrow on Biography.
I hope you'll join me and Jack Perkins weeknights on Biography. I'm Peter Graves. Thank you for watching.
Now you can own this A&E video biography of the most famous couple in television history, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Call 1-800-423-1212, and for only $19.95 plus shipping and handling, you will receive this personal look into the lives of Lucy and Desi, TV's first couple. Call 1-800-423-1212.
I love Lucy and she loves me.
It was a 20-year conflict that became a world-shattering political event. We'll travel back to the drama of the American Revolution, Sunday.
And now join us for the Thanksgiving Visitor, next on A&E.
Lucy kisses like no one can. She's my missus and I'm her man. And life is heaven, you see. 'Cause I love Lucy, yes, I love Lucy. And Lucy loves me.
People are much more satisfied than they have been in the past. Now with quality care standards, we have some guidelines to follow. This is what the customers want. They want to have their appointment within a day. They want to have their car fixed right the first time. This is them speaking. Anything we can do to make it better. It's not just meeting the standards that people are setting for us, but exceeding them. Something we're doing is working.
Quality care people, quality care standards at your Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealer.
The Eagle has landed.
All the moments,
John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock.
the shared memories, the events we'll never forget.
Well, I'm not a crime.
All the pain and the joy, all of history, all in one place. Coming January 1st, the History Channel. Call your cable operator today and begin your historic journey. A&E wishes you a warm and wondrous holiday season.
Over the years, you've given the very best to your family and friends. This year, why not give the gift that shows you really care? Give the gift of health. Nordic Track. Nordic Track says more than any other gift. It says you care enough to make an investment in someone's health, in their future. Nordic Track is the world's best aerobic exerciser because it offers the best total body workout. One that helps you strengthen your heart, lose weight, reduce stress, and look and feel your very best. Over 2 million people have discovered that Nordic Track is the one that works. It's so effective that even after 5 years, 7 out of 10 Nordic Track owners still use their machine an average of 3 times a week. Give the gift that will last a lifetime, one that says you care. Nordic Track.
Order by December 20th for Christmas delivery and receive free electronics valued up to $199.95. Make this the best Christmas ever with Nordic Track. Give the gift they'll keep using and enjoying for years to come. Nordic Track, the gift of health.
Piece of paper. Mail your completed entry via first-class mail to the Disney Channel Presents Peter Gabriel's Secret World Sweepstakes. P.O. Box 4489, Blair, Nebraska 68009. No purchases necessary. Void where prohibited. Entries must be received no later than December 31st, 1994. You must be 18 years or older and reside in the U.S. to enter. So don't be afraid.
Hi there.
Enter now and be a real part of Peter Gabriel's Secret World.